This is that school, Thetford Elementary. So this school is pretty amazing. 10 years ago we started, I actually worked for Cedar Circle Farm, which is the farm that Nick works for, and they inspired me to connect with schools. So I did. I called this school up and I said, hey, I heard you guys are trying to start a garden, let's get together, and they couldn't believe it. They were really excited because it was actually the school nurse who started the garden, but she didn't know anything about gardening. She just wanted kids to be healthy and knew it had something to do with food. So they started a garden out back, and they started, I think they had 3 or 4 raised beds.
Much smaller
right here.
than those.
Much smaller, yeah. And they just like threw a bunch of seeds in there. They didn't know anything about plant families or nutrition requirements or crop rotation or anything like that. They just threw seeds in, school got out, they came back in the fall and they were like, oh my God, it grew, how cool. So after that year, they thought, wow, that was really successful, but I don't know what to do with all this food. We don't even know how to harvest it. Now how do we put our gardens to bed? So I came in and we started developing theme gardens to work with the most interested teachers, which at that time were just K through 2. And so we did. We created a sensory garden and a Three Sisters garden. And we grew a little bit of food for the cafeteria. And it turns out that the cafeteria director was a gardener, so she had some interest in trying to get that food into the cafeteria, so that was a good start. And well, we were really successful that year. It was amazing. Everybody really loved it. So the next year we built more raised beds. And the next year we built more raised beds. And the next year we actually went and built 7 new raised beds in our courtyard, turned these original ones into our school lunch beds because our school food service director got so interested, she started saying, hey, I don't want you to grow this, I want you to grow this. I was like, okay, that's great. I will grow whatever you want. So that's what we did. We have school lunch beds, we have theme gardens. These are K through 2 theme gardens. We also then decided that, you know what, we want fruit. So we planted blueberries and cranberries and raspberries, and we rehabbed the apple orchard, and we planted pear trees and peach trees. And everything did really, really well. And people started really using the outside and really enjoying that. And so they created an outdoor spaces committee. And this to me was really exciting because this was going beyond the work that I was doing. I'm not even on the outdoor spaces committee. But this group decided that they needed to improve the whole schoolyard because outside is great and it's a great place to learn. So now they have at this school, in the wintertime, they have a skating rink. They have a climbing wall on the side of their building. They have a zip line. They have a bike pump track, which in case you don't know what that is, it's just like a bunch of little hills for kids to ride their bikes on. And what they're finding now is that kids can't wait to be outside, and when they're outside, they're really active. And the teachers are using all of this to learn from. The parents are learning. The kids are eating healthier. The school meals have improved. It's really pretty amazing. So this is some of the cooking activity that we do. That's our crispy kale party. 2nd graders get to have a crispy kale party every year. So it's about food literacy, getting kids to be more comfortable with fruits and vegetables that they grew. It's much easier to do when they've grown it. And while crispy kale is not the healthiest thing in the world, I mean, you take something healthy and you coat it with salt and oil and you bake it and kill a lot of the enzymes. But now they know what kale is, and they're not going to be as upset when they find it in their soup, and they might even start asking for it. These are some of the fruit that we have at our schoolyard. So we've now gotten to the point where each grade has taken on an aspect of the food system at school, and we're constantly improving that. But K through 2 have their theme gardens. Kindergarten is really focused on seeds. 1st grade is really focused on soil. 2nd grade is focused on pollinators. 3rd grade is our fruit and berry committee. 4th grade is taking on the trees on the landscape. 5th grade has become a labor force for the gardens. Lucky me. And 6th grade, we're not quite sure what they're going to do yet, but we think they're going to start managing our on-site compost system, which we'll get into in a little bit. At this school we grow oats, and this project sort of was inspired by a teacher who said she wanted to do a seed to bread unit. And I thought, well, our timing is off, school year, harvesting, all of that. Rye is so difficult to deal with in a raised bed, we can't do that. Plus there are molds that can grow on rye that you don't necessarily want to have in schools. So we started doing oats. And then this sort of developed into a way to get a grass rotation into some of our raised beds, which was a kind of a cool thing in terms of soil health. So this is the cycle of oats, and these are 6- and 7-year-old kids that do this. And they sow the oats. They grow over the summer. We tie them up into these cute little oat skirts, I like to call them. And then the kids harvest the oats. We thresh and winnow them. And then they make food with them. So this whole project inspired a farmer's market at school. This first grade teacher that year decided she was going to have a farmer's market, and her kids took the pumpkins that we grew and a couple of seeds, and they decided to sell those, and they made oat muffins with these oats. Well, that was so successful that this year it's now a K-3 farmer's market. And it's kind of amazing. This all happens without me, but they're using all of the things that we grow in the gardens. They're selling gourds, they're selling seeds. They're really excited about it. They made little mini pumpkin pies with the pumpkins that we grew in our pumpkin patch. They're learning math, they're learning marketing, they're learning about community, they're learning about soil and ecosystems. They're learning about employment. They're learning about farmers markets. They're taking field trips. It's really, really exciting. And so I'm really interested in this sort of full circle idea of bringing thoughts and systems full circle so that we can know better where we come from. And composting is a really great way to do that with kids. Gardening is a great way to do that too, gardening with food and bringing it into the cafeteria and into the curriculum. But we also have all these gardens, and we need nutrients for our gardens, and we really don't like to import a lot of nutrients in bag form. I prefer to try and get it from the soil. So as a part of the Outdoor Spaces Committee that had happened a few years ago, they decided that they wanted to start recycling food waste. And part of the reason they did that is because Vermont passed a law called the Universal Recycling Law, which mandates that all organic matter must be removed from the waste system, incrementally depending on how large of a producer you are. So schools are having to do that now. By 2017, summer of 2017, they're supposed to have all of their food waste removed from the landfill stream. But this law was passed with the best of intentions and, you know, as laws often are, zero funding. So how are you going to remove all the food from the waste stream when there are no municipal composting facilities or haulers that will pick it up? So the more innovative schools, such as this one, decided that they were going to start composting. And so that's what they did. I have one more slide, and I'll show you that. So they have a 5-bin on-site composting system. We have 4 active bins. We compost all of our food scraps, including meat and dairy. These kids are out there in the middle of January. It was about 0 degrees that day, and the thermometer that they're reading says 140 degrees. Wow. And that's what you have to do at a school, because schools happen in the wintertime. So that's when all the food is generated. So hot composting is the way to go. Insulated compost bins. Hot composting also because we're trying to destroy pathogens. We are composting all of our meat at school. And the kids are really involved in the process. I'd like to say that they manage the system, but they don't really, not yet, but I think we'll get there. And this system has become such an incredible model. It seems like every week I'm taking another group of school kids, or now high school kids, a lot of high school kids are getting interested on a tour of the system to show them how it works. The school that I work with in Stratford is building a system like this in this spring. So we'll also be managing all of our food scraps. This school, being the progressive school that they are, we still feed animals some of our food scraps because we realize that from a caloric energy standpoint, it's more efficient to feed another animal before we make compost for our gardens. We are now producing more compost than we need, so we have more gardens planned, because that's what you do when you have more compost than you need. You just grow more stuff. So that's what we're doing. These are compost windrows, and they're kind of like all over the edge of the schoolyard now. We have various ages of compost windrows that are finishing with macroorganisms after the microorganism activity in these hot compost bins. We've got to let the worms and beetles move in and do the rest. So that's some of the work that I'm doing in the Upper Valley, and it's really fulfilling.
Could you say what else goes into the compost besides the food scraps?
Yes, so it's about 200 pounds of food scraps a week, all liquids, all meats, all of that. And then 2/3 that amount again of carbon material. So for every 5-gallon bucket of food scraps, we're adding in a 5-gallon bucket of horse manure mixed with bedding, another 5-gallon bucket of either shredded paper or brown paper towels recycled from the school, and then another 5-gallon bucket of wood shavings or wood chips or sawdust or some combination therein that we get all locally from the community. So it's quite a large volume. It takes us about a month for 200 kids to fill one 90 cubic foot bin, which is about 5 by 5 by 4. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.